The Connection Show. Inspiring. Hope. Health. Healing. Sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our page. Share it. Subscribe to it now and click the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming shows.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is Anthony Russo. Welcome, Anthony.
How's it going, Jill?
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining in, Anthony. I'd love the audience to know just a short part of your bio. So, Anthony is a leadership and performance-based motivational speaker that previously owned Identity Marketing, a Dallas-based experiential staffing agency that had over 2,000 active independent contractors and over 7 figures in revenue for several years. For the past 15 years, Anthony's been a professional host and an MC for major national events, including NCAA championships, major concerts, and charitable events. And so that gives you just a tad bit on him. And I don't like to read the whole bio because
No, you're good.
It takes away from the interview time. So,
Of course.
so Anthony, what we love to do on the Connection Show is connect the dots of people's lives, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and connect those dots to how your childhood led you into the amazing person you become today. Generally, we go into a full-blown interview, but we're shortening it today because you are going to be a guest speaker in Overland Park, Kansas in just a few weeks at the Becoming the Best You Can Be Overcoming Challenges conference. So we don't want to give away all your secret sauce.
Of course. Well, there's 39 years, so there's a lot of secret sauce to go around. You can make a bunch, a batch for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we could talk about a decent amount of stuff, and it might not even touch on what I cover there, but it's a whole bowl of stuff that makes us who we are every day, every aspect of our life, and to give the basics. And it's things I talk about a lot now, depending on what shows I do. I was a single parent household. My dad was disabled and a compulsive gambler, and I lived with my mom, and there's a lot of demonization around being raised in single parent households, which I don't fully understand. I believe in statistics and percentages, and I understand that doesn't paint a great picture across the board, but I would not be who I am without being raised in a single parent mom household and dealing with the struggles I dealt with my whole life. And I think that's part of the reason why I think it's part of what I speak about and part of what I coach about, to never have a victim mentality. And to realize that everything you are today, whether you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old, is a product of your failures and your hard times just as much as your successes. And I think that's such a key to talk about.
Thanks so much for opening with that, because we have so much in common, which I'll share off screen with you. And yeah. I just feel so honored to hear just that little bit about you, because, again, people stereotype a single, never married mom or a single mom and think that the child has no chance of ever becoming the best they can be, which is so much a falsehood. And so share a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, then, if you had any connection at all with Dad, even though he was a gambler. Did you have relationship with him, and was he in and out of the house, or were they divorced, or did they stay
They were
married?
divorced. Yeah. So no, I it's funny. My dad passed away about 7 years ago, And it's interesting, as he's passed away, it's, people have different memories. And I know that I did not have, the best childhood with him when there was those moments. It wasn't bad. It wasn't abusive to that point. I know he was emotionally abusive to my mom, but that was kind of the gist. But the upside is I had love from both my mom and my dad. They definitely love me, which is, I think, ultimately the key. And I have a daughter that's out of wedlock, and I have a great relationship with the mom in Omaha, Nebraska. And the key when we discussed all of it was really just about, like, you look at parents that are miserable together, and they raise a byproduct of that misery. Whereas if the parents are happy and the one key element is love, they end up all right. And I was blessed with having love from both my parents. So my parents got divorced when I was 9 or 10 years old, and right around then. And my dad moved back to Vegas. I was born in Vegas. My mom moved out. We moved as a family to St. Louis for her to go to chiropractic college. And he moved back when I was 9 or 10 years old. And I would visit him once a summer. We would talk on the phone regularly. He was no longer really a compulsive gambler because his handicap, his multiple sclerosis got worse, and it was a little harder. But no, I never had a bad relationship. I just knew that he wasn't the person that I wanted to be, whether he was handicapped or not, or disabled. But there was something about my dad that always made him my dad. First off, I look like a spitting image. And second, he was charming. And I realized if I could combine the two things from my parents, even though I wasn't around my dad very much, if I could combine the ability to be funny and be charming and engage people with my mom's work ethic, which was to go through chiropractic college, to raise a child on her own, a survivalist. If I could combine those two and then learn from the people that my mom put in my life that were her friends, it could make me something better. And it's fun now that I'm an adult, 39 years old, and I'm with social media. The one positive of social media is I get to see those old friends those old friends of my mom that are 15, 20 years older than me, that are like, man, I love what you're doing. And they follow, and it's an interesting thing. Like, to me, I still see them when I was 10 years old or 11 years old, and they were in their mid 20s or late 20s. And it's very fulfilling to be able to realize that if we as people can embrace that everybody has a touch on their life, even the bad, if the father was bad or if the mother was, whatever it is, if we can utilize that for positivity, it's just it's a game changer in terms of the way you look at life.
Well, and I also believe, and I'm one of those types of people, Anthony, that doesn't do good and bad. It's like, to me, good and bad is just like,
right.
I like the grays in life.
Yeah.
And so, I don't believe that a human being is totally bad. And so I look at it as, let's take it back generationally, and, from you to your father, to your grandfather, to your great-grandfather, to your great-great-grandfather, and what was the generational wounds or sin or burdens. And when you can take that ancestral burdens back and then bring in the blessings and connect those blessings from victim to victory to joy, I don't think you're left with that feeling of, wow, they were a horrible parent, or they were,
No.
And to me, I think, sometimes, I had a therapist one time, and my husband leaned in and says, I think Jill's mom did the best she could. And my therapist leaned in and said, no, she didn't. She despised her daughter. And
Right.
so I held on to that, and I think there was so much truth to that. But I took those generational wounds back to being despised, to seeing how my mother was despised, and then maybe her mother, and then bringing in the blessings of feeling loved and connected. So at that aspect for me, and it sounds like for you, I don't think there's that bad or good. It's circumstantial of
Right. And we struggle with the gray, and the gray is the good stuff, because the parent they're not going to be perfect, and some are definitely worse than others. Some situations are way worse than we can imagine. But at the end of the day, if we utilize those gray areas, the best way to describe it is, it's not your fault about the way that maybe you start out with your mindset, or it's not your fault the way that you do feel like a victim or defeated, but it is your responsibility to get out of it. Because at the end of the day, there's no way that a victim mentality will ever ever succeed. And I get why people can be victims. 100%, there is a reason to play the victim card, but at the end of the day, you actually have to play the redemption card in order to actually change and make your life enjoyable. At the end of the day, we want happiness, and I don't know too many victims that are truly happy.
Yeah, and when you stay a slave to resentments, then they own your life and you have no freedom whatsoever. And,
Right.
you know, I remember for myself when I did my own personal work, Anthony, and I'm sure you've done, and I'd love to hear from you on this, and when I did my own work and set my mom free from my resentments, um, I could love her and hold her hand right until the day she died, even in her abusive state. And she
Yeah.
still was abusive, but I had forgiven her, and so those arrows didn't pierce me. So, you know, taking you back to that little boy, 9, 10 years old, you know, parents divorced, dad now moves out of state. How did you go through your own healing and forgiveness?
So it's funny. I never was.
Suburban
I
St.
never was
Louis in his
spiteful. It was
work
very
at the
interesting, and I think that
Independence
I was,
Examiner
some people are
and the
gifted
Lee
in
Summit
science, some
Journal.
people are gifted in
Along
math.
the way, he's won
I
statewide, regional, and
you know,
national awards for
I was
his
a B
reporting.
student, A minus student, but I think what
Toriano
I was
is
gifted
also
in
an
was
award-winning
But
human
absolutely
interaction
believe
and
stories
reading people. I was always that way. My mom
commonality
even will tell you
and how we
as
can
a
all learn
baby,
from each other.
she goes, "You were the
That's the
weirdest
importance of
baby
telling
because
stories. I was
it was
telling
like you were
someone
looking
today
through people."
who-
And I've kind of taken that with me because even as a child, I didn't hold grudges. I would be mad about things. I would drop them. I had a very mature sense of handling information, even as when my parents got divorced. I handled the divorce very smoothly. That was probably my gift, is my ability to interact. So when it comes to forgiveness, I didn't really need it. I just tried to continue to. It's funny, I just never had that issue. But what I will say, there was a scorch mark, or a moment in my life that I look back on as somebody that is a speaker. I went to art school, so it's not like I went to school for broadcasting or anything, or speaking or anything like that, but I've become a pretty solid professional speaker from no training. And I truly relate it to one moment in my life with my father. And I love my mom. She did so many things for me growing up. She sacrificed so many things for me. So she was my go-to. And my dad, I had a good relationship, but not great. So I was out, and I'll never forget this moment, because I think it changed the way that I looked at the power of words and the power of creating change by being able to use your voice. So my dad, I was 13. I think I was actually probably 14 or so. My dad, since he was disabled, we would use the paratransit bus to get someplace. And we would typically go to movies for the 2-3 weeks. And I was in town, we'd go a couple times. And I remember that we were out there. He was in a cane at the time, barely, he was just about to get into the wheelchair at that point. He struggled, legally blind, so he couldn't do a ton on his own. And I remember he was being incredibly cruel talking about my mom. And I had enough of it. And I used my voice. I went off like an adult would. And I said, "You do this, you shut your this." And I go, "I'll leave your handicap ASS here." Like, I went off, and there was silence. And after the movie, as a 14, 15-year-old, I did not have to hear my father talk poorly about my mother for years. And I think that instilled the reason why voice is important, and why it was to me. And then, I mean, you can look at what I do now and what I've done for over a decade. And I realized that it wasn't a need for forgiveness. It was a blessing that I had that situation, because that's made me who I was. And because of the fact that he changed instantly, I didn't need to forgive. Technically, if I don't get something to change in my own life, I think I see it as my responsibility. If I can vocalize it, there doesn't need to be the forgiveness needs to fall on me. If I can't get the job done to change something, then I have to forgive myself for not being, perfect in that situation. But it's a little bit different. I haven't struggled with the concept of forgiveness, because I am relatively self-aware.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very inspirational. And how about the topic? Because I've gone through this myself, so wondering, how about the topic of grief? So when it came to the time of Dad passing, and of course he was in Vegas, you said he lived there. Take us through that step for yourself emotionally, and what you went through with Dad, going to the next dimension, if he was a Christian, or what his life was for you.
Yeah, we're a Christian family. Not always church going, but always have a relationship with God. And I know he was as well. He prayed a lot. It was an interesting situation. So mine is not normal. So I'm somebody that believes in knowing that something could happen and being okay with saying goodbye when you know it's time. I just so happened to be working that month where I was completely out of pocket, and I was in South Padre, Texas, actually hosting an event for 3 weeks. And before I went, I talked to the doctors and I was like, what's going on? And they said it should be a couple months. He'd been struggling for a little while. He was already in his early 70s at the time. So he had lived a good life, and he was still communicative. It was still fine. And then it went like that. It happened so fast. And I ended up finding somebody to fill in for a day. I had a great support network that was able to get me out there. But ultimately I missed him by about an hour and a half after he passed. I had a weird thing is on the plane, my mom was flying from a different place and I was flying, and it was just odd because we both knew when it happened. Super weird. We like pinpointed the time and we felt it. The grief was interesting because I cried that night, and I don't think grief is a one size fits all, because there's people that say get it all out, get every bit of it out, and then you won't have to live with it for years. And then I see those people that got it all out still living with it for years. I deal with grief, and maybe it's just accidental, but I deal with it with not remembering the negative as much. And I think that because I could find the positives and his humor and different things, I deal with grief by embracing it when it comes. It's been 7 years. There are certain triggers that'll remind me of my dad. The TV show This Is Us, on occasion, I'll see a bit, and it's like it's speaking to me through my father. And I deal with it by just embracing it, by bracing emotion. And as somebody that, talks about masculinity and whatever, I think emotions and masculinity are 100% congruent. And I let it when I need to deal with it. I deal with it.
Do you get moments? I'm getting the Holy Spirit goosebumps now. Do you get moments where you like find yourself in a shadow or a mirror and go, oh my gosh, that was my dad? Or you hear your voice sometimes and you'll think it's your dad speaking.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that like my mom even will get, it's creepy because I'm the same age my dad was right now when I was born. And I look way too much like him. And there was something, God, what was it? It was about a week. It was like 2 weeks ago. I was with my girlfriend, and my dad always used to do this. And when I did it, I freaked out. I do a lot of hand motions the same. I look the same. There's a bunch of different things we do the same. I don't have the heavy New Jersey accent, but I said something because my dad always used to be like, if we're flying or if we're going someplace, it's a 5-day planning. I'm not like that at all. But I did something with my girlfriend where we were talking about we had to do the next day. And like he used to do stuff with his hands. And I went, all right, let's make a plan for tomorrow. And however I said it, like it was muscle memory, and it came out, and I was like, all right, let's make a plan. I was like, oh my God. Oh, it just happened. That was my dad.
Isn't it weird when that happens? Because my sister and my voice sounds exactly the same. And when I just said exactly the same, that was my sister's voice. Yeah. And I lost my dad and sister September 28th and 30th, 2020, 2 days apart. And my sister had gotten diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and lived 12 weeks, and she was only 68. And my dad was 94, perfect health, Anthony. And I think just when he knew she had 10 days left, he thought, I'm going to be with my Gwenny Bush. And so he slipped away 2 days after her. So they just both were my rocks in my life. My dad was my rock. My sister was my rock. And so all of a sudden, like, again, I laughed when you said This Is Us because I just watched the last episode. And so many times I'll be listening to something and I'll say something to my husband and I'll go, oh my gosh, that was my sister talking.
Yeah. Yep.
So our laughs were the same. It's just weird.
Yeah. That's crazy. 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
it when they found it? I'm assuming it was in an advanced state.
Yeah, it was stage 4 pancreatic. They gone to the liver and the bones. And my sister, she was a rock solid type of girl. No matter how much pain she was in, she could still go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning and do a full circuit, even if she was at 20 in pain. And so I think that it was in her body for so long, and she finally got to a place where the pain in her spine was so bad she went to ER, and when they did the scans they saw the pancreatic cancer. And but
Wow.
she's the kind of person who would put on high heels even if her feet had pins in them from surgery. And I'd go, why don't you just wear gym shoes? She goes, because I like to look good. She said,
I love it.
because I like to look good. And I'd be, oh my gosh, and that's just how she was all the way to the time she died. She had to get her nails done. She,
Sounds like my aunt. My aunt
yeah,
was the same way. My aunt battled stage 4 cancers all throughout her body for almost 10 years.
wow.
Yeah, she was a stage 4. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your career now. So let's transition to how you became the different levels of jobs you've had at 39 years old. So you've gone into different directions.
Yeah, so my staffing agency, today was the 4-year anniversary when I announced it. 2018, I merged that staffing agency identity marketing with a different company because I just felt as though, as somebody that spoke in front of big crowds but never did his own speaking, my own speaking, motivational speaking, etc. I just felt as though something was needed, something was missing. In 2016, a couple of years before that, I started Be the Change. I didn't know what Be the Change was going to be about. It turns out it evolved, and timing wise, with everything with the COOF and and George Floyd, and it just became more of a political discussion show and a political discussion channel and all that stuff and different. But my own speaking, it was right around 2018. I was like, I got to start looking for what am I going to talk about? And my dad was, as I said, was a compulsive gambler. I never had that issue, or so I thought. But then I realized that, I've got the ability to speak, but what's my story? And I was getting into day trading of options because I was learning it. I took some courses. I enjoyed it. I did relatively well to start, and then I did relatively not well over and over and over. And each time I made a mistake, I said I was learning lessons from it. I was like, I'm never making the same mistake twice. And I didn't. So I kept doubling down on my efforts. And then I remember hearing my dad used to talk about, and my mom used to talk about when my dad would gamble, which he gambled away our life savings a couple times growing up, which wasn't much as is. I remember that what I heard was the rush of losing was better than the joy of winning. So I one day was trading a certain stock that was incredibly volatile, or trading the option on it, and I lost about $7,500 in about an hour. And in my head, I was like, oh, good God. And I didn't have that kind of money to lose at the point. The whole reason I was doing trading was because I no longer had the other business, and I was trying to, whatever. And I remember the moment where I was stone cold, and I was like, well, won't make that mistake twice. Good to go. And I'm like, wait a second, stop. This is becoming compulsive. This is becoming an issue. So that night I realized I wrote a whole, like Jerry Maguire late at night, typing on my computer what my topic was. So my dad gambled with a style called negative progression, which means you double your bet every time you lose. And it's actually a great thought process, except for the fact that you can lose way more than the table maximums and it's a bad idea in gambling. In life, it's perfect. I realized it's a perfect analogy. And I've used this my whole life without even realizing it, that if I'm learning lessons, I use it in that stock trading too. If I'm learning lessons every time I fail and using those lessons to not make the same mistakes, eventually I'm going to end up one step ahead. That's how the math works in negative progression. So if you bet $10, you lose, you bet 20, then it's 40, and it's 80, until eventually you finally win, and you're not even, you're actually that initial bet ahead. So then I started getting into speaking at that point, and I was talking about the powers of using your failures, doubling down on your failures. And it just made a shift. And I started really working on that side of the my profession. And then COVID hit, and I was
you
just
had to
starting.
double down again.
I had to double down again, which is when Be the Change grew, and then there's that. But yeah, I was just starting to get booked on paying gigs and colleges and stuff like that for overcoming failure, and then COVID. So I had to kind of rebuild, and then here we are today. Obviously, I've done over 200 digital shows with the network Be the Change, and the great thing is, and the last thing I'll say on it is, I was always good in front of a crowd because I was used to it. I did spring breaks. I did the major events. I've been in front of 80,000 people at the Georgia Dome multiple times, but I never really spoken on my own topic. And I remember the first time I had to do a digital show, whatever, motivational speaking or whatever. I was struggling because I did not know, I couldn't see anybody's face, and I had no whatever. It was just me. And, doing 200 shows over COVID, I can talk to a brick wall. I could talk to a room of 3 people. I could talk to a room of 1,000 people. It does not matter. So the great thing about what COVID's done is now that we are starting to get back to real life, depending on what state you live in, I'm in a much more equipped place than I was prior. And I think,
well, it's funny you bring that up because, Anthony, I had never done public speaking ever, never. And then when God told me to do this connection show, I feel like so at peace doing this, like talking to you.
Conversational.
But when I have to do my own live with no one to talk to, I sit there for 20 minutes in a panic going, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? And yet I have so much to share.
Right.
But when it's just me and there's no give and take with the conversation, I am so lost. It's so funny.
And the crazy, so I'd only spoken in terms of a motivational side or the leadership side. I've only spoken in front of a crowd 6 times, maybe 7 times, where it was business oriented. I've talked, different stuff, but in terms of my own messaging, et cetera, 6 times. I just spoke at an event in Dallas this about 2 weeks ago with some of the biggest names in speaking in the country, from a level of Marines to great speaker. Nick Vujicic was one of the speakers, and he was the keynote, obviously, but there were some big names. These are guys that are $10,000 fees or more for their speaking. And Bedros Keuilian. The one feedback I got from some of the guys I'm working with out of this group was the one thing they noticed about me was that I was, take away Nick Vujicic, the most seasoned and polished speaker in front of the group, which was really interesting, being the fact that it was really only my 6th time. So where did I fine tune that ability? 200, 300 shows, going on rants on social media, whatever it might be. It's just a conglomeration of practice over time. And it's been I'm thankful for the 1.5 years where I had to learn a different method, because it makes me more comfortable to tell my story. And even though I was comfortable in front of a group, it makes me more comfortable in front of a group.
Now, where are you living now?
I live in Fort Worth area, a little bit in Stephenville, Texas. Well, mostly in Stephenville. My girlfriend's out there, but my address is in Fort Worth area.
And is your mom still in the St. Louis area?
No, she's Fort Worth area as well.
Oh, good. Okay. Is she still doing chiropractic, or is she retired now from that? So
she does natural healing. She's actually a shaman, and she does counseling and different work that way. And she practices. She's licensed in Missouri, but not in Texas. But she does have some private patients.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I live in Branson, so I was just wondering.
Yep, I know that area very well. Where was it? Springfield. I dated a girl out there. Thank goodness that's over. I have a great. My girlfriend now rides horses, and it's a totally different life. Lives out in the farm, and that's a whole different story. Maybe I'll share that at the event. The ability to look at the positive on things, and how weird times make you meet different people and see different people, and it was great. So I've actually been in a great relationship with a cowgirl for over 1 year now.
So leading up to that, I want to show everyone your bio on the screen. So this is Anthony's bio in his website, #BeTheChange.com. And this is the flyer for the event that Anthony is going to be speaking at February the 11th through the 13th, Becoming the Best You Can Be, Overcoming Challenges in 2022. You can still get tickets by going to comechangeyourlife.com, and the tickets are available through, I believe now, February 8th for the live conference, and up till February 10th for virtual. So it's going to be amazing. And Anthony, tell us just at the end, why did this platform intrigue you to speak at this particular event?
Well, I've gotten to know Brenda from the event. I spoke at the digital one as well, and it just fits. And this is actually a really short, funny story. But yesterday, somebody was asking me what I do. I was filming a documentary with some people, and she's like, "So what do you speak about?" I explained what I speak about, and she's like, "Oh, so it's kind of like you're helping people become the best you or the best them." And I was like, that was weird. So I guess it just encompasses what I speak about, and I relate what I talk. When I give my message, my leadership message, I'm not telling people how to be a better salesman. I'm not telling people how to go do this and that and very specific skill sets. I'm giving them what I refer to as the soil. I get the soil prepared for growth. And I believe as though so many people look for all these different things in life to help them sell and help them do this. And ultimately, you can't become the best you, which is, again, the theme, without starting to work on yourself first. Like, you can have the best $5,000 seed, and if you throw it on crappy dirt, you're not going to be able to grow. So I think being at a part of an event like this, with speakers that have a wide variety of stories, and I know a lot of them, I know them personally, it's going to be a really great group to hear from, to inspire, motivate, and also have gratitude that we really do. We're so blessed, so blessed to be a part of this world, so blessed to have the opportunities we do. And even in the crap we have, even in the crap that we go through on a daily basis, it's there for a purpose. And
you're
once we learn
speaking
that,
are you speaking on Saturday, I believe, or Sunday?
Saturday.
Wait,
Sundays. Yeah. Saturday.
And so you'll be there for the black tie then event and stuff.
I will. So wait, I'm the 12th, and I get it confused because it's Super Bowl.
The 12th is Saturday and the 13th is Sunday.
And the first day of speaking is Friday, though, right? Thanks. Yeah, I'm Saturday. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone, go to the website today and register for the event and get your tickets now. You can get the tickets again at comechangeyourlife.com. It's also on my website, braveheartworkshops.com. So you could register on either site to get your tickets. In person, it's only $3.99, and that includes your meals and being able to hear like 20 plus speakers and sit and talk with them, do breakouts. And if you can't attend in person, it's only $49 virtually. So anything else, Anthony, you want to say before we close off?
Nope, that's it. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm speaking on Saturday or Sunday. My brain is mesh. I'm not sure. So I'm speaking on the weekend. How's that? Bam.
That's good, and it's on Braveheart Workshop's website, so you can find it there, and it's got the times and the speakers. So
there we go.
Thanks again for joining me, Anthony, and joining the audience and sharing a little bit about who you are.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thanks again.